It started like any other episode of The View. The hosts gathered around the table, exchanging smiles and preparing for another predictable discussion. But the moment Stephen A. Smith stepped onto the stage, the atmosphere shifted. The room grew tense. The crowd quieted down. Everyone could sense this wasn't going to be the usual round of polite conversation. From the moment he sat down, there was an energy about him that demanded attention. He carried himself with calm confidence, his expression steady, his tone sharp. The discussion began with the recent election and the unexpected dominance of Trump's campaign. It wasn't just a win, it was a movement that had reshaped the entire political landscape. Stephen A. spoke with a clarity that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. He laid out the reality that millions had seen for themselves, but few in the media dared to acknowledge. The numbers, the turnout, the demographics, it all pointed to something bigger than politics. It was a cultural shift, and the establishment had no idea how to respond. As the conversation unfolded, it was clear that this wasn't a typical guest appearance. Stephen A. wasn't there to blend in or play along. He didn't sugarcoat, didn't bend his words to fit the narrative of the show. He exposed the widening gap between what the media was saying and what people across the country were actually feeling. The panel tried to steer the conversation back to safe ground, but he wouldn't let it happen. His words cut through the noise, forcing everyone at that table to confront uncomfortable truths about the growing disconnection between the press and the public. The tension in the room built with each exchange. The hosts shifted in their seats, searching for talking points that no longer landed. Stephen A. kept his composure, speaking with the calm authority of someone who had seen the system from the inside and refused to play by its rules anymore. His focus wasn't on personalities or parties, it was on patterns. He explained how years of empty promises, media manipulation, and cultural pandering had pushed ordinary people to their limit. The audience sat frozen, not sure whether to clap or stay silent. At one point, the discussion turned to the state of the economy and the frustration that had been building across working-class communities. Stephen A. didn't raise his voice, but the weight of his words filled the air. He described how millions of Americans had grown tired of hearing about progress they couldn't see in their own lives. Wages were stagnant, costs were rising, and neighborhoods that once thrived were now struggling to hold on. The media had told them things were getting better, but every grocery bill and rent payment said otherwise. The hosts tried to defend the narrative, but it was too late. Stephen A. had already drawn a line between perception and reality. He painted a picture of a country divided not by race or gender, but by trust. Trust in leadership, in the system, and in the truth itself. He reminded them that while politicians were busy fighting on television, ordinary people were fighting to survive. The audience listened quietly, their expressions a mix of surprise and agreement. When the conversation shifted toward minority voters, the tension deepened. He spoke about the growing frustration within communities that had long been told to stay loyal to one side, even as their circumstances remained the same. It wasn't anger, it was fatigue. Decades of promises had produced little change. People were tired of being lectured, tired of being blamed, tired of being used as statistics. They wanted action, not speeches. By now, the room had changed completely. What started as a casual talk show segment had become a raw, unfiltered reflection of the country's mood. The hosts were visibly uncomfortable, trying to regain control of the discussion, but Stephen A. never lost his footing. Every word carried purpose. He explained how the political landscape was shifting beneath everyone's feet, and the people in charge didn't even see it coming. Then came the part that silenced even the most outspoken panelists. He drew attention to the breakdown of honesty in the media, pointing out how truth had become secondary to narrative. It wasn't about informing the public anymore, it was about shaping what the public should think. Outrage was profitable, division kept ratings high, facts were twisted to fit agendas, and the audience, he said, had finally noticed. There was no applause, no laughter, just the sound of quiet realization filling the studio. For years, the hosts had been the ones asking questions. Now they were the ones being questioned. Stephen A. turned the spotlight back on them, exposing how the very institutions that claimed to represent the people had lost touch with them. The viewers watching at home could feel it too. The authenticity, the courage to speak without fear of cancellation or backlash. As the discussion neared its end, the panel tried to shift the tone back to something lighter, but the moment had already outgrown the format of the show. The tension wasn't hostility, It was truth hitting the air in a place unaccustomed to hearing it. Stephen A. had dismantled the illusion of neutrality that daytime television depended on. He showed that the truth doesn't belong to one side, and that real honesty often sounds uncomfortable. When the camera stopped rolling, the air in the studio felt heavy. The hosts avoided eye contact for a moment, still processing what had just happened. The audience sat in quiet amazement, realizing they had just witnessed something rare, an unfiltered confrontation with reality in a space designed to avoid it. Clips from the episode began circulating online within hours. Viewers shared them across social media, calling it one of the most honest moments ever broadcast on daytime television. Some praised him for saying what others were too afraid to say. Others criticized him for challenging the narrative so directly, but regardless of which side people fell on, everyone agreed that something had shifted. It wasn't just a viral moment, it was a wake-up call, a reminder that real conversation still matters, and that courage, especially in front of millions, can change everything. Stephen A. didn't go there to win an argument. He went there to remind people that truth still has a place in public discourse, even when it makes the powerful uncomfortable.